Are you ready? Because I'm ready. Fasten the seatbelt because you are going to go on a journey of inspiration, passion, compassion, inspiration pure. It's Gouche Live featuring Paul Rosen. Paul will join us around 10:30. He's in the Mercedes studio traveling, so he's got to find a good place to park. But I'll tell you what, this is Mental Health Mondays. Chuck Basti gave us this opportunity by saying, Gooch, I know you're a sports show, and I know that you travel the world and you've met so many wonderful athletes and all, NHL players and AFL players, but bring it to the grassroots. And today we're doing that, I'll tell you, by talking to an incredible woman, Jill Wheatley. We've had some incredible people on this show. Jules St. Louis, you heard her story, Kendra Fisher, Kelly Ewan. But I'll tell you, today is one of those days where you really get to understand trials and tribulations in life. We all go through it. We all judge the book by the cover. We don't always get into the story that's inside the book. We don't get into the chapters that get us. And I want to read this to you before I bring Jill on. I had a buddy, as you know, broke his neck 38 years ago, my best friend named Robert Velfor. And today's show is exactly what he taught me. As you know, I had to fly back and do his eulogy, and at his eulogy, I had this big, long speech already written, and I was so excited about standing in front of all my peers that I hadn't seen probably in some of them in 25 years as playing in Germany, flying back to Winnipeg, and I got my notes and I put them up on the pedestal, and I was ready to read. And I looked up and I saw people I hadn't seen for so long. And I asked myself the question, why was I chosen to do this? Why was I here in front of all these people? What was Robert's message? What would he want me to say? And I took the pieces of papers and I put them aside and I said to everybody, I apologize. I prepared a very lengthy speech. I'm going to keep it really short. And here's what came out as I thought through everything that he meant. And what Robert taught me that day, it is not what you collect on your journey in life, the cars, the money, the trophies, the accolades. It is what you give back. That is your true legacy. Is that not true? And you know what? Nobody's done it better than this girl. Jill, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's fantastic to have you here. I'll tell you what, I'm really looking forward to have Paul join us. Paul, as I mentioned to you, is our co-host. He's going to be around here in about 30 minutes. So we've got lots to dig into. When he gets here, obviously, he can share some of his stories with you as he'll be listening to your stories. And it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful that Rob Frid, we have an acquaintance that said, Carrie, you have to interview this young lady. And I said, done. And here you are.
Here we are.
Listen, where are you exactly in the world? We're at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I know that we needed to do this because we didn't want to wake you up very, very early. So where exactly are you?
I'm in Kathmandu, Nepal. It is just about 10 to 8 in the evening on Monday night. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say I'm right in the city. No mountains at this time, unfortunately, due to the current situation. I'm in the city, but still, I'm here. I'm healthy.
Well, I've got a pictorial look at your journey. We'll get started on the right-hand side. You may or not see it on your screen. I'm not sure, but there's a bunch of people that are already commenting, and it's wonderful. Kara Wheatley Meldrum is saying hi, Bean. So is that your nickname?
Yeah.
we all have a nickname, so mine's Gooch and yours is Bean. Or Steve says hi, Jilly. So we encourage people that are going to ask questions, and as we go through it, I'll make sure that your questions are appropriate. And of course, people will not have any questions because I know I spoke to you yesterday. You're not only articulate, but you're able to lay it out as we need to hear it. So we'll start off with saying hello and being in Toronto and reading your story and having an opportunity to talk to you. I'm excited to have the opportunity to be a part of your journey right now. And I know in the future, we're going to be connected from the hip. I'm not going to climb and run the mountains that you have, but certainly you're inspiring me to get off the couch and do more than I can do. So before, look at this. Tell me this is not an incredible picture. Where are you?
In that picture, I'm actually up near Mardi Himal Base Camp, between Base Camp and High Camp. That is in a popular area of Nepal, the Annapurna Conservation Area. So at that point, I think I would be somewhere around closer to 4,000 meters. My local friends may correct me, but somewhere 3,500 to 4,000 meters, I think, at that point. Yeah.
And when was that?
That was just about a year ago.
Okay, so let me read this. Conquering Mountains. A sports accident in 2014 changed Jill Wheatley's life in a fraction of a second. While working as a health, sports science, and physical education teacher in Bavaria, Germany, Wheatley suffered a traumatic brain injury that left her visually impaired with a life-threatening eating disorder and days away from death. After spending more than 2 years recovering in hospitals in 3 different countries, Wheatley is embracing life by running mountains. No, you don't just run them, you climb them. Honestly, girlfriend.
That's actually quite recent. That's just in February this year.
I know you've heard it before. You are absolutely amazing. I played hockey, as you know, in Germany. I had my own little trials and tribulations with concussions, but my dream was always 2 things. One, they always do this hockey game up in Mount Everest area. I've always wanted to do that, but because of my lungs, I've been always nervous about it. And the other one was to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And the reason is a buddy of mine owned a resort in Kenya and always said we were going to go there and I was going to be Dr. Livingston, but it never came about. So I'm going to live my life through you climbing that mountain. Where is this mountain?
That is in the Annapurna region as well. It's Manang. It's a sort of a central spot where I spent about 2 weeks at a base in a little village called Humde. And there's different frozen waterfalls and ice walls to climb there. So I did that with a number of local friends here in Nepal with the Nepal climbing team.
Well, you know, I've met many people along my journey, and one of them happens to be Robert Wine, part of the Canada 5. His story is incredible, and he is so excited. Usually only comes on at 4 o'clock, and he puts his alarm on to hear that it's on. So it's great to have Robert with us, and of course, so many of your friends and family. Listen, walk us through the journey. Obviously, you're an athlete, or you were an athlete and still are an athlete, but obviously to do what you do now, you've had to, as a young lady, prepared yourself in some capacity. And of course, being over and being a physical education teacher in Bavaria, and I know that region very well. Tell us how you got before the accident, how you got to where you were, please.
Okay, so growing up, I'm from Northern Ontario, where I always, with my family, always outdoors, camping and skiing. Skiing for me, my brother did play hockey, as most people do in Northern Ontario. So I grew up very active. I went to university and I was never really sure what I wanted to do, but I had a coach that was very influential, Brian Mealy out of Sault Ste. Marie. He was really a mentor for me, and I learned a lot more on the ski hill than I felt I did in the classroom. So my love for outdoors and fitness led me to BC. I went out west to ski one summer, and that's when the mountains really caught my attention. One thing led to another. I graduated from Teachers College and just had sort of a serendipitous connection and got a job teaching in Singapore. And it was a great spot for me, being young, out of college, and a really good place to travel. Singapore is just a hub, really. So when I wasn't teaching on weekends, I could go to Malaysia, Indonesia, and then longer holidays, New Zealand, Australia, and throughout Asia. And then, I had gone with the intention of sort of being away for 2 years, and then that led to actually never going back. Yes, of course, I've been back many times to visit, but from Singapore, I went and worked in Russia, and then Russia to Switzerland, and Switzerland to Germany. And then I was in my second year of teaching in Germany, the first week of September. So it's coming up soon, the sort of anniversary of that serendipitous day. It was the second week of school, about the second week of school in Starnberg, just outside of Munich, and when the accident happened. And I use the word accident lightly because I do refer to it as serendipity as well, because although an accident, yes, and it did change my life a bit, or a lot, serendipity, I just feel, it's sort of an event that happens in a beneficial way. And it took me a long time to see it, but so much good has actually come out of what happened that day that I wouldn't change anything.
And I've heard that on several occasions, people saying that. Obviously, the accident changed my life to the better. When you think about those words, Paul will say the exact same thing after losing his leg. He couldn't have accomplished what he did if he had both legs. And so I think that's absolutely amazing that you say that. Now, there's been a lot of articles written about you. I've watched some videos on you. One of them is out of the Outpost in March 12th, 2019. Almost blind and not running scared. An epic journey of recovery. And it's you actually writing these things. And there's a bunch of quotes that I'll walk through in a few minutes. But I'd like to talk about the accident day, if you don't mind. But before we do that, for 2 years, I faced darkness. My dreams of being independent, internationally educator, and coach were instantly snuffed out. How could I face this storm? You're doing very well.
Thank you. I didn't think I'd make it through the storm. I didn't want to make it through the storm, to be honest. Yeah.
So walk us through that. It was you're playing baseball. Again, baseball, you weren't playing, but you were with the kids participating in. And what's amazing is baseball is not a traditional sport in Germany, especially southern Germany. So here you are, baseball. Walk us through that part.
Sure. Yeah, it was. The analogy for those in North America, those familiar with baseball, it's easy to describe it that way. However, it really was just an introductory lesson. We had been working on catching skills, throwing and catching, and then connecting. Like it could be a tennis racket and a tennis ball, or it could be a cricket bat and a cricket ball. Tennis, what have you. And this day just happened. It was our very first day with baseball bats, and so my students were really excited, and so was I. I tend to have as much fun as the students do. And we play off each other's energy. So that morning it was sort of a damp gray, early September morning, autumn just starting to set in. And as usual, I did my morning routine where I tend to ride my bike to work or go for a long run and run my way to work, to school. And so it was just a normal day. And it just happened to change in an instant. So what happened, basically, we had done our warm up, and then we had broken off into groups, and each group had an activity that we had talked about. I had demonstrated, we had worked together. So each, I didn't need to babysit. These are 16-year-olds, international students. So I did have a handful of Germans. However, the students came from all over the world. And what kept us, we all spoke English together, sort of that was the bond. However, so 3 different groups working on different activities. And the group I was with didn't have bats. We were standing sort of the equivalent of where third base would be, where one group was sort of at home plate and another group actually far beyond first base. And the group that was at home plate were actually connecting ball and bat for the first time. And completely fluke. There was absolutely no intention whatsoever. A young boy who's a powerful, strong 16-year-old hit the ball in a direction that just happened to connect with my head. So the right side of my skull was at the time so I knew there was something seriously wrong. I knew I needed to get help. But at the same time, I was trying to fight. I didn't want to lose consciousness. I had 21 students, and to this day, that, you know, I am so thankful it was me. I mean, the ball could have hit a tree, it could have hit, but it also could have hit any one of those students. But it hit me, and I am so thankful for that. I was taken to hospital. My eye closed instantly. So the ball hit on my right side, the right side of my head, sort of between my eye and my ear. And I was taken to hospital by 2 colleagues. And that memory is sort of, again, in and out. I remember feeling like I was in a race car and just trying to be in the fetal position, while at the same time feeling like I was in a washing machine. The emergency room, I remember somebody being very close in my face. I remember my friend, Melinda, a colleague and friend who continues to look out for me now. She was looking out and asking questions. However, they did some quick tests and diagnosed me with a black eye and left me and my friends to take me back to my room, where I stayed on a farm. Carrie, you can probably relate, in Germany, think countryside above a barn, where I lived by myself. And they dropped me, and then approximately 36, almost 2 days later, a friend had come to visit and pretty much found me. I mean, there had been a bit of in and out. I had tried to use some frozen berries to ease the pain. But the bag of frozen berries became a bag that I tried to vomit in, but I couldn't help myself. You know, I couldn't move. And so not a pretty sight, obviously. And just in my mind, I mean, I trusted the medical professionals told me that I had a black eye. I felt it was a pretty intense black eye inside. There was this battle going on, because I felt like there's something, this is wrong. Like this can't be right. But at the same time, it's what the doctor said. And I was going to do a race that weekend where I was going to be, doing a long distance duathlon in Switzerland. And that's why my friend had came. So I'm like, okay, you're taking me because the doctor said I just have a black eye, and I can run and I can ride a bike if I just have a black eye. My black eye is never reopened. So that friend, instead of bringing me to Switzerland to the duathlon, he brought me to the same hospital, where I was quickly transferred in an ambulance and brought to a neurotrauma center in Murnau, Germany.
Yep.
And the diagnosis changed from a black eye. My skull had been fractured from the impact, so here. And my brain was bleeding and swelling. So my instinct, my thought that there was something really wrong, there actually was something really wrong. And so from going from a black eye, the area of my brain that was affected includes the damage of the neurooptic nerves. So I have complete, it's basically, to explain it in simple terms, it's like I'm paralyzed in my right eye. So I have no control over the movement. I cannot open my eye. It looks like I'm permanently winking, which can be funny. I can joke about it now. But so no vision on the right-hand side, and my left eye, again, because of the neurooptic nerve damage, not completely, but I can see out of my left eye. I can't move it above the horizon or to the left and right properly. So although I can see you on the screen right now, I just need to use my neck a lot more than the average person needs to. And that actually created a number of obstacles in the beginning as well, because when you have to move your head to see properly, your body alignment gets completely out of whack. Right. So that was part of it. Did I answer your question? Wow,
of course you did. That was absolutely amazing. And to be told you got a black eye and the eye never opens up again, it's sometimes difficult, and I know you're able to talk about it the loneliness, the fear of being in that hospital and having German doctors only talking German and you not being able to understand it all. Tell us how you got through that, because that I've been there, obviously, with my concussion and laying, and my German was Hogan's Heroes German. I only knew very limited amount of beer and Achtung and Schultz. How did you get through that part? Because that in itself is so frightening.
Mm. That's a really tough question. I'm not really sure, to be honest, what got me through, because at that time, the confusion and the stages of acceptance, I was in denial. I was in completely disbelief. I couldn't believe that this actually happened. Because at first they focused on the brain. The first 4 months in this neurotrauma unit, they were just, getting the swelling and the bleeding stopped. And they kept telling me that the eye would reopen. As soon as the blood cleared, the blood just completely overtook my face. But because, the brain is bleeding, they thought that once that cleared, I would get my vision back in both my eyes, because at that time, they both seemed quite similar. However, the language was one thing, just the confusion, and I'm very black and white. Like I need a timeline. So
right.
I need to know, when is this eye going to be open? When am I going to get to go home? When am I going to get to run again? I need to go back to work. And brain injuries don't come with timelines, and I could not accept that. So part of the denial in the cycle of acceptance, I went from denial to anger and aggression. Like it was all mixed in, and it was really not nice for anyone to be around. I didn't want help. There were these, shame was already starting, because being told I had a traumatic brain injury, and then I had this vision thing going on, there was shame, because there's these new labels being put on me. Society puts these labels, and with these labels come stereotypes. What are people going to say? What are they going to think when they know Jill has a traumatic brain injury, Jill has vision loss, Jill has an eating disorder, she's got all of these things going on? That's shameful. I don't want to be seen. I don't belong. This intensely profound feeling or belief that I'm not worthy. There's shame, even though I haven't really done anything. I'm just, I've just had this day, and where society is telling us what I should look like, what I should be doing, how I should be feeling. And, I just felt like my value as a human was sort of, I was losing value as a human because of what happened. The visual impairment, the brain injury, the eating disorder, and then the post-traumatic stress disorder that before I would only associate with war or guns or gangs, that type of violence, not trauma from a physical education lesson where I got hit in the head. Right. So those times in Germany were really, really dark. And every morning, the neurotrauma team coming in, like 5, from all of the different departments, they would come in their jackets and their notebooks. And I knew that they could speak English, the medical doctors. However, no one felt really comfortable using their English. And at that time, there was just so much confusion within, with the brain and trying to comprehend what was going on. And then the whole another language and somewhat culture being added onto that. So it got really, really dark. And there was no light for a long time. And it's only because a handful of people who did not give up on me that I managed to find light and still tap into that today, when there's hard days. Yeah.
We are so lucky that you found the light. You are worthy. And we're so blessed to have you on the show. An incredible, incredible story. There's people, obviously, that are watching that know you and love you dearly. Brady Meldrum.
I can't see comments.
I'm reading it to you, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay.
Brady Meldrum is saying, Bean, love you, stud. And then I've got Vero Nisa. Hello. She's saying hello. Mel Mackie Mac. trying to tell and explain a
Uh,
softball to the doctors was frustrating. A softball is not a
yes.
softball.
So Melinda, that is my colleague. She's in Nova Scotia right now. So in fact, baseball, it was a softball, but softballs are hard. So anyone from North America knows a softball is hard ball. But trying to explain that to German doctors, and again, my memory, because I was brain injured, but my understanding is that from my colleagues trying to explain what happened, they were thinking softball as in like a volleyball or a beach ball. And so not connecting the fact that it was actually really a hard ball.
It's yeah, you know what? And again, the translation sometimes with German, from English to German, there, even though somebody can speak German, it's like myself, I can speak German, but there are words that I just can't put the exact meaning to. So sometimes we just slough it off. And so I know the frustrations of that. Listen, we are absolutely excited about talking with Paul. When he comes on, you two can share some incredible stories. He's actually written here, What a Story. And as you're telling your story, he's hearing some very similar comments, even though his injury happened and he went to Israel to have his leg amputated. You'll hear some very common notes. But you know what? You're watching Gouche Live featuring Paul Rosen. He will be joining us. It's brought to you by the Hockey News and the good people at Paramount Sports Management. And Jill, I'll tell you what. Fascinating, fascinating, fascinating. I want to show a couple pictures before we continue. Look at this. Where are you now?
I'm in Switzerland. That is, oh, my smile. I just get so excited even just looking at the picture, because that is the first time I got back on skis. I truly believed that, well, for one, I believed life wasn't worth living, but I really never imagined that I would be able to ski again. And that's not skiing like lift skiing, that's ski touring. So climbing up on my skis and then skiing down. So that is in Graubünden. You probably know Davos from hockey.
I know Davos very well, yes.
So I spend quite a bit of time in Davos, and that is ski touring.
How beautiful is that city?
Yeah. So that picture is from my first time back on skis, which I thought would never happen.
Rob Frid, thank you so much for introducing me to Jill. You and I have traveled the world just at different times. We didn't get there at the same time, but all the cities that you've mentioned, Singapore, just absolutely loved it. And so when you went through what you went through, obviously you were laying in a hospital bed by yourself many times. And here's a couple of things, if you don't mind, before we bring Paul on. I'm going to read a couple things that I took from Almost Blind and Not Running Scared, an epic journey of a recovery. A lot of us feel that our trials and tribulations are massive. I learned from my friend Robert Velfor, who has left a quad. He taught me at a very young age. He was my best friend and was my line mate. What I learned along the way with him is, I would struggle to what restaurant to go to or what movie to go to or even what golf course to play on. And I got frustrated because maybe they were booked out and I couldn't do it on that day. And I got huffy and puffy. But think about yourself and people like Paul and Robert. You guys fought just to breathe, just to eat, just to live. And so sometimes we don't put life really in perspective. And I think a pandemic that we're going through right now may help us individualize our own self and be able to take inventory for ourselves. So The Outpost, you actually wrote this story, did you not?
I did.
Okay. So I'm just going to read a couple of the quotes, which are fascinating. When a devastating injury left myself almost blind.
Oh, actually, so they've done the descriptor, but the story I wrote, yeah.
Okay, good. So I'll do the descriptor. I apologize.
Okay.
When a devastating injury left Jill Wheatley almost blind, when she's working abroad and far from home, she takes to running in the mountains to gain perspective. Now, they're saying when she's working abroad and far from home, that's after the injury, right?
That's what they're referring to, yeah.
Okay, and
so I was working abroad and then traveling.
Right. And then, so you talked about putting perspective in to running mountains. Think
Yeah.
about that for a second. You're brain injured. We can't hide from that. The fact is you're blind in one eye. You're visually impaired in the other. And you would go to get a perspective of running a mountain. Incredible. Tell us about that, because I don't think most
Well,
people can.
that is one of the lessons I feel like I have learned from my traumatic brain injury. Like there's so much that I have learned from it, and that's why, you know, that's one of the reasons I say I would not change anything. Yeah, perspective probably tops the list, or in the top three lessons. You know, I once said that perspective can make challenges appear mountainous or possibilities look infinite. So, you know, when I think, you know, when I say that, I feel myself standing actually in this Annapurna region, in a valley where I can see, you know, the mountains, they're endless. And for some people, they may look at that and think like, wow, I could never do that. However, you could, you know, I sort of shift my perspective or take that vision that I do have and think, no, you know, there's infinite possibility there. Like there's so much I can learn about myself in those mountains, you know, from how far I can go, or, you know, the time that it takes me, or what I might find about nature, or, you know, there's just so many things, so many possibilities in those mountains, instead of just saying, no way, that's way too difficult. So the shift in perspective that has come from my brain injury has changed my life. Yeah.
Chill.
Yeah.
Chill. I look forward to when we get out of this pandemic that you help me with my fear. And I because of my asthma, I don't want to make an excuse, but I hope to visit you in one of these areas where there is a small mountain. Let's even call it a hill. And you and I and a bunch of people can climb that together, and I can hear you tell me your perspective, because
I can't
I'm absolutely blown away. So
Awesome.
Michelle Barrett, one of my best friends in Germany, he's come on and he said, what a tough lady. He's not meaning it in those words, because translating the German to German, but he means the strength that you hold within yourself is such a learning perspective for people. The ability to not be, I would, and you said it best, you don't want sympathy. And you don't need sympathy to drive you. A lot of people do that. I learned when I lost my sister, and Paul was a big part of getting me through that. Of course, my wife. I could have chosen to roll up in a ball in bed and be in the fetal position, or I could rise above and make sure that her name is not lost in vain, and continue on the journey of educating and talking about it. Because the fear to talk, when you open up, people sometimes see that as a weakness. Some people want to say that maybe you're looking for sympathy, or maybe you're looking for notoriety. I didn't, and I know from your point, you open up easy. It's not easy to stand in front of people and say, I'm brain injured, number one, or I've lost vision in one eye, because the judgment comes. Again, that's when I do not judge the book by the cover. Robert Vine, who comes on the show, I mentioned to you, he's physically disabled. You look at him, and he's the one that'll say to you, people help him because he looks like he needs the help. When they look at you and me, they don't really look, and I'm not comparing myself to you. Please don't take it in that way. But, I do have my own issues from my concussions, and people don't see that. And so I think by you being able to communicate and allow people to get within inside of your journey is so vitally important and courageous. If you don't mind, I want to continue on a few more, and I want to say, love you, Jill.
Mom. Oh, hi, Mom. Hi, Dad.
Yeah, it says Dawn and Mary Wheatley. Now, is your mom the leader of the pack?
Is she the leader?
Because my mom and dad, who always see my mom saying, include my dad probably didn't even know we were having, even though he was a fantastic human being. Here's a couple more things that kind of give a really good perspective. Finally, when the chief medical director stepped in, noting my survival was questionable, the insured reluctantly gave in, and my brother was on a flight from Canada, willing to do whatever it took to save me. The question that you would even have to deal with insurance, because you obviously had coverage, is incredible to think about, because not only are you dealing with a brain injury and dealing with the loss of vision, you now have to try and navigate a medical system that there should not be a question.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely the darkest days. And my brother Ryan, who had just a baby, just weeks old, flew over when they, my survival was questionable. At that point, the complications. So I was changed to a neurotrauma center in another part of Germany. And once I actually was brought to the neurotrauma center or rehabilitation, I was literally held in a room, and think no more of the size of a jail cell. And I use that analogy because that's actually what it felt like. I was being held because like I had mentioned before, the eating disorder, the part of my brain that was damaged was, my appetite did not exist. However, the focus of the neurotrauma center is on brain, not nutrition and refeeding.
Right.
So my weight, I was so far gone, nutritionally, mentally, that all they could do was hold me, because they could not do the therapy required to work on brain rehabilitation, because I was so nutritionally malnourished. So I was literally just waiting. No German eating disorder center would take me. No German medical, completely medical would take me, because of the complications, because there was so much going on with respect to the brain. She's 70, so she's a female foreigner. She doesn't speak German. She has a brain injury. She's 70% blind. She has an eating disorder, and her weight is her survival is not questionable. So nobody wanted to take me. Right. It was my brother that took me.
Well, we love your brother. I don't know your brother, but we love him. Is he the gentleman, or is he the young? I don't know his age, so I shouldn't say that. Is he the hockey player?
He did play hockey, yes. And
you're from a little town. You said north. You said you were up north in Ontario, and I'm just getting this feeling it's Thunder Bay.
Uh-huh.
So if Mom is on, Mary, can you ask Don if he ever watched the Thunder Bay Twins play in 1988? If he was a big fan of that. And how old's your brother?
My brother's.
We're not going to get your age.
My brother, he played. Ryan must be watching. He'll tell you Thunder Bay Comets. Okay. I think. Current River.
Well, anyway, before that time, I'm sure.
Ryan had to make a decision between skiing and hockey because he's such a gifted athlete himself, and he went the skiing route after some time. But now he plays in the firefighter league in Southern Ontario, I think.
Oh,
so
good. Good friend of mine.
But anyway, yeah. So he brought me, and because of the insurance, and I am a foreigner in Canada, even though I'm technically Canadian, I gave up my residency because I'd been living overseas. So I have a passport, but I'm not a taxpayer. They won't let me, they'll treat me as a foreigner in hospitals. So they didn't want me. So again, it was more complications and a lot of effort by Ryan, a lot of convincing. But even again, that was such dark times, and I was so far gone that the medical facility in Ontario, actually, I was too far gone for what they could handle, and that's when they transferred me to hospital, a very specialized treatment center in Denver, Colorado. Wow. And that's where I spent the next 7 months, and getting my weight restored to a place where I could literally to get my brain functioning again. And so the next 7 months in rehabilitation there, and that's truly where I got my life back in Denver.
Well, and your story is not uncommon in the sense that the misdiagnosis, the inability of compassion to understand the complexity of it. Even with my situation, when I suffered my concussion, I was they say I woke up in the hospital. So from the time of the injury to the hospital, it's got to be 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and I wake up and there's a bunch of German doctors talking, at that time for me, gibberish. I had no idea what they're talking about. And all they were concerned about was my shoulder. They didn't talk anything about my brain injury. And I left that hospital. It's for another time. We'll talk about it. Because this is not about me, but my point was the fact that they were looking at the wrong spot. It wasn't my shoulder, guys. We needed to look closer to my head. Listen, there's some great comments here I want to post. Paul is having trouble. Paul's in a car. We call it the Mercedes studio because he travels quite a bit. He's upset. He can't seem to get the phone working. But Jill, we will have a call with Paul over the next week or so, because he just feels you're a huge inspiration and love to discuss. Michelle Barrett's coming on now saying that this lady is an inspiration, and he's made this. Meet me in September in South Tyrol, and we will start practicing with the walk in the mountains. All right. Well,
vielen Dank.
Yeah, vielen Dank. If we can do that, if we can fly, I will be there.
I can't leave Nepal then.
Yeah, I got a feeling we're not going anywhere for a while. Rob Frid has written this, so please be patient with me trying to read it. Amazing you educating all of us on multi-level health challenges that come with traumatic brain injury, Jill. You are truly an angel from above, and you inspire myself, who suffers daily with long-term effects of multiple concussions. Thanks, Gouche, for having Jill share you with us. You rock, Jill.
Thank you.
So if you ever feel that your story and being able to communicate doesn't actually help, it does. Because here's Robert Wine, who I met under different circumstances, and he has become an inspiration to me. As I'm able to do whatever I want. I can decide what I want. I can jump on a flight and fly wherever I want. I'm not bound by anything. Robert's bound. Sometimes we cannot change that. So Robert says exactly, I have had to learn to simply accept help no matter what, because it's always offered. So from Robert's perspective, he probably went through the very similar situations that you did. He actually had to learn that his left leg was not his right leg. That's how serious his brain injury was. So I think you probably had to retool yourself and be able to come through some very big challenges. And I know that people say you got a lot of help, but there was nobody more than yourself helping yourself. Explain to me, please. You said this, and this is a fascinating. This is probably, out of all the things I read about you, this is the one that really, really got me to say, wow. After more than 2 years in 7 different hospitals in 3 countries, it was time to fill a backpack. Let go of the losses, let go of the cannots, and celebrate the life I nearly lost. Now, I know you heard those words. I know you lived those words, but I can tell you how many people, and I do inspirational talks about all the things with concussions and brain injuries. And I can honestly say there are not many people that were in your position do this. Tell me how you got the inside strength. Was it from within yourself? Was there somebody that, obviously your brother and your family, loving family, or I don't want to say, did you see the light? What was that moment where you saw, okay, the chains are gone, I need to move?
Well, coming out of hospital, I left a hospital in Colorado, and I honestly felt completely lost. Like, my life had changed so much. I didn't have the job, the apartment, I can't drive anymore. All of these losses. I was leaving Denver Hospital, and I really had nowhere to go. Of course, family back in Canada did welcome, and I know I'm always welcome there. But I had a life overseas that had completely changed. And now I'm leaving airport, and I can't, I don't have a place to call my own. I just have the bag that a nurse brought with me in an airplane, when I was taken to Denver. I didn't have my bikes anymore. I can't ride a bike independently. And I just felt completely lost. I was at an airport, but literally there's no direction, nothing pulling me anywhere. And so I think I did have a little bit of inspiration from my hospital rooms in Denver, where I could, with the little vision that I have, I could see the Rocky Mountains. I was fortunate enough to be like up on seventh floor for quite a bit of time, and I could see the Rocky Mountains, and I just used to shout at my main Dr. Smith, and I just say, like, get me the F out of here. Like, I just want to be in the mountains. Just let me heal. I'll figure it out by myself. And so once I did get out and I was trying to figure out, insurance wise and residency, I don't have residency anywhere. Like, my residency in Germany had been lost because I didn't have my job anymore, but I had given up I literally didn't have legally a place that I could live.
Jill, that in itself, think about that and forget all the other stuff that you got going on. That in itself is a scary, scary thought.
It was like a bureaucratic mess, like, and that on top of, trying to heal medically, because you don't just walk out of hospital and everything's perfect.
No.
There's a lot to try to adjust to physically, mentally. It was scary being in public places and I, claustrophobias with my vision, so I have 30% and it all comes from one side. So I literally don't see when people are on my right. So even going to an airport by myself, like, it was really, really scary. I just had no sense. And I had to try to, clean slate wasn't an easy feeling. Some people may think, oh, clean slate, you can do anything you want. But wait a second, there's all of these complications with life in general and living, and a traumatic brain injury and the wake that came with it. All of this avalanche of PTSD and eating disorders and vision loss. So with the mountains, the idea of mountains and just uncertainty, and I knew I needed to work towards that place of acceptance because I wasn't there. I was breathing, like, so thankful to be out of hospital. 26 months that I had been in 7 different hospitals, being thrown from one expert to another expert. Nobody knew what to do with me, and going through, the anger and the aggression, the denial, and then back to anger and back to denial, and this diagnosis, and no one believed that I wasn't anorexic. I had, this other type of eating disorder, and it was just so many complications, and depression. I was just like, and I didn't want anybody to need help. I was such a, my autonomy was lost, and I had been living overseas, and I was independent, working alone. I could go in my car, go to the mountains, get on my bike, go skiing, and all of this was taken away. And so I couldn't, even though I was getting a hospital, I couldn't go and do those things. So something, I guess just a little bit of time and trying to sort through some stuff. And from the time I got out of hospital in December to June 12th, so 1,162 days ago, I started to travel. And I decided 1 year, 13 different massives. This is my way around the world. 13 different massives that I would celebrate being alive. And just in that time, I truly believed that I would figure it out, that I would work towards this place of acceptance and everything would be okay. That didn't happen. It was 13 months of, 13 massives, 12 months, 1 year. And I was just starting to get, to start to accept this isn't going to change. I'm going to be a visually impaired traumatic brain injury survivor, all of these labels, but that's nothing to be ashamed of. And a handful of people, connections, and a lot of encouragement. I started to talk when I came through Nepal the first time. A very politely curious friend sort of asked me about my journal and what I was writing about, and that got me talking, a level of comfort, and that started conversation. And conversation is so important. He wasn't just being nosy, he wanted to listen, he wanted to learn. And from that moment, from that discussion, starting to talk about why I chose to travel, what happened, what I was trying to work on. That's when I finally had a little bit more of a shift in perspective and changing from, that shame and holding everything in to wait a second. If I can shift this perspective and start actually talking and sharing, that might give somebody else light and some hope to do something. I'm not saying the same thing to go and travel in mountains, but just a little bit of hope in dark days, because I never would have believed that I would go and travel and run and now climb and ski in mountains. And so, yeah, just by talking, by sharing, by being vulnerable, I hope that I can, by me being vulnerable, I hope I can encourage others to start conversations and talk more openly about what perhaps they may be shameful of or struggling with. You mentioned, mental health doesn't get talked about enough, but it's real, and we need to talk about it, and we can't pretend that it's not there. So many traumatic brain injury, for your friend that you were referring to, and physical disabilities. I hide my physical disability, and I'm not proud of that. I'm still working at taking off these glasses in front of other people, and it's very rare that I do. And that is because I physically look different. That's something I'm still working on.
Jill,
sorry, I went off there.
No. That is, listen, the vulnerability and the passion in your voice is what the world is a better place, because you talk and you communicate. If you held it within yourself, you cannot have these comments from Virginia Brown, who just said, you are definitely an inspiration, Jill. Love you. Kelly Bawa, she is a real superhero. Thanks for inspiring us all. So your journey, though not the journey you probably picked, is the journey that will help so many others that don't have that strength that you have. So listen, you did take your glasses off and were vulnerable and showed me you're as beautiful as you are outside as inside. So you should never be. That's the issues that you're not the weak one. You shouldn't be weak of your physical looks. We should be embarrassed and disgusted with ourselves if we look at yourself or other people that have a disability or have an impairment, and we should be the ones that should feel the embarrassment, because it's not the looks, it's what's inside, and you have both beauty inside and out. Here's something I'd love to ask you. You said new characters, new settings, tales of getting lost, tales of getting found, finding myself and strength I never believed I had. Obviously, while you were going through these tremendous thoughts of you mentioned embarrassment or vulnerability, it's not easy to tell somebody I'm brain injured or I'm disabled. That's why we have a huge issue, especially with male hockey players. They're so, or male athletes, please. Sorry, they're so macho, and we're so concerned of showing our feelings. And if we show our feelings, we show sign of weakness. And if we show sign of weakness, it means we can't be looked at as a man. And on top of that, the way our world works is if you and I walk into an office together and we're looking to get the same job, and you explain your story, I'm not talking to you personally, I'm talking about another person that has the exact same abilities that I have, but yet they find out that I had a brain injury and I suffered from depression and I contemplated suicide, but the other person who has the exact same abilities is looked upon differently than me. And that's not right, because I may be the person that has dealt with those trials and tribulations and overcome them. So my inner strength has to be taken in consideration before you just label me disabled, a mental health issue. Your thoughts on what you've said here, the strength I never believed I had.
Well, yeah, for so long, I like I said before, I didn't think that life was worth living. And a large part of that is because my perspective before. I had been an autonomous athlete, independent. I could do what I want, and I did not think that life was worth living because I wasn't going to be able to do those things. I wasn't going to be able to, live completely autonomously anymore. Driving when you're living in the mountains in Central Europe, I was dependent on it. I raced bicycles and I couldn't even ride a bicycle anymore. So things got so dark, but I really do believe it was because people who really believed in me and didn't give up on me when I gave up on myself. That is why I am here today. And so, that tribe is so important. And even though, some of us, like you said, unfortunately, especially, and I'm not making a blanket statement, but male athletes, or males in general, they don't want to talk about injuries or feelings, and there's shame put around whether it be a traumatic brain injury or mental health issues, challenges. Yet the power in conversation and the power of opening up, and for me that has been huge, like to be able to talk. And once I started talking and realizing that by me sharing and putting myself out there, vulnerability comes with uncertainty. I don't know how people are going to react. So there's a risk. I'm naked to the world, like the emotional exposure. I'm not going to pretend that every day is pretty pictures, pretty, mountain alpine sunrises, because yes, there's a lot of that. And I'm so thankful for it, but it's not reality. It doesn't happen every day. There's darkness and it needs to be talked about. Like Absolutely. Celebrate the good days, but we need to talk about the times that aren't so bright. And, no one's alone in this. Maybe years back, it wasn't talked about at all, but now, the benefit of opening up and talking, having conversations, and knowing that no one's alone in this. Like it doesn't help to keep us, secrets keep us sick. And unfortunately, I think there's still shame tied to mental battles, whether it be from traumatic brain injury or not. And the benefits of talking is something that has certainly helped me find light.
Incredible. Jill, I've taken almost an hour of your time. Absolutely inspiring, incredible. We are going to do, if you don't mind, part 2, because there's a lot more to dig through. But there are a couple things before I let you go that I need to talk to you about. One is Michelle Bertz is saying, so true, Gouche. I'm trapped on my screen listening to her, which is absolutely, there are a lot of people that are saying that. And Rob Frid is saying, your best Gouche live to date. Jill is stronger than any hockey player we've ever played against, Kerry Goulet. Fact. And it is. But I wanted to discuss just a couple more things before we let you go. And on our part 2, because Paul couldn't get on here, I just think it would be absolutely fascinating to have you two together talking about some of these things, and we can share experiences and some of the other things, like talking, people, this morning you ran 14 kilometers. I couldn't even walk to the car without being tired and getting my cup of coffee, for God's sakes. You're inspiring me to be better. And I look forward to when we get out of jail that you mentioned and we collect our $200 when this is all over. We will meet in Europe. I don't think I'll go to Nepal, but maybe we can meet in Switzerland. Maybe we can, or in Germany, we can go to Garmisch-Partenkirchen and climb.
That's right by where the accident happened.
But you know where we could go then? Fusen, the Neuschwanstein. Did you ever get to see the castle? You and I, with my wife, with Michelle Bertz, we're going to climb the mountain. It's not very small, so we can do that. A couple more things before I let you go. By appreciating my circumstances, by embracing every detour, though my eyesight has narrowed, my perspective has widened.
Yeah.
Cryptic.
I think I sort of alluded to that before, So I can choose. we have a choice. I have 70% vision loss, but I also have 30% that I can see. So instead of focusing, spending energy focusing on what I've lost, and I'm not saying 30% is a lot of vision. However, it's not the actual eyesight that I'm talking about. I have gained so much from shifting my perspective, and from 70% of what I can do, I just focus on what I've gained, the appreciation for life, and appreciate what I can see. I appreciate every moment of my life so much more now than had this accident not happened. My appreciation, my shift in perspective for empathy and for people feeling with me, not the sympathy, feeling sorry for me, but feeling with me. And shift this perspective, and by me opening up, by me being vulnerable, breaking down barriers, being for people that have physical challenges and perhaps mental challenges, that I can relate to. The perspective of values. I didn't think a whole lot about values in my life before, but now I'm so much more in touch with them. And that, like I mentioned, empathy, but also connection with others, and connections in stories, and in vulnerability. So the shift in perspective and focusing on what I can do and what I have gained because of a serendipitous accident. 70% vision loss. And so someone recently mentioned, referred to me as being blind, and I made a correction, because I'm not completely blind. I have 30%, and again, there's those labels. So whether I reacted because of a label or a certain stereotype, but it's more of a celebration. Like, I have 30% vision, and I'm so thankful that I do. The lessons that I've learned because of what's happened, and I know because I've had a little bit of vision problem in my left eye recently, but I know if I lose more than 30%, I'm going to be okay, because life has taught me that, everything I need is inside, and I'll still be all right.
Jill, your strength wears your labels well. You will have no issues in life going through it. You're listening to Gouche Live featuring Paul Rosen. Paul, unfortunately, was not able to make it. Satellite issues on the Mercedes studio. So I would like to ask you that you would be so kind to do part 2 with us and join Paul next Monday, if that's possible.
Sure.
Okay.
It's possible.
Because I'm sure you're not going anywhere, because you're not running out of Kathmandu. But I got a couple of points just before we let you go.
Sure.
Secrets keep us sick. Is that yours?
I think it's. Well, I do say it often. I think it was referred a lot to in my recovery, especially in Denver. With eating disorder recovery specifically, when people, and this goes for men and women, it goes for everyone. When you're battling something, whether it be an eating disorder, whether it be, some kind of drug or alcohol abuse, if you're hiding it, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get better. So that when I refer to conversations and talking about things, if you're keeping something in secret, there's a good sign that there's something that's not quite right, and by talking about it and opening up to getting some help is a step in the right direction.
Michelle Baird absolutely loves that statement. And it's not only an inspiration, he's saying he's going to use it. So we have certainly hit our opportunity to educate people. Final part, your mission. My mission is to release the shackles of stigma that traumatic brain injury, vision loss, eating disorders, and post-traumatic stress disorder hold. Through the mountain experiences, I developed acceptance and shine light on the power of perspective and possibility. With you, Jill, I don't think there's anything that's not possible. And I really look forward to the opportunity of having you on next Friday. next Monday with Paul. But also, I'd love to send a big note out to Dawn and Mary, your parents, and of course your brother Ryan. They have an incredible daughter, a beautiful sister. I have friends, Malcolm and Nicole Sutherland in Thunder Bay. As you know, I played there. I cannot wait to have the opportunity when I travel to Thunder Bay and have a cup of coffee, a Coke, or even a beer.
Pepsi. Sorry, my dad, Don, is the president of Pepsi in Canada. I mean, okay. He's not.
Coke was just a generic name. I didn't say Coca-Cola.
Oh, you can't use that word in Thunder Bay. You can't use the word Coke.
Okay. Pepsi.
All right, that one's for you, Dad.
Okay, Dad, and I'm buying.
My sister Kara worked for Pepsi as well.
Fantastic. All right. Final words to you until we meet you next Monday. What's your week like? Like, how many mountains are you going to climb?
Well, the thing is, we're kind of in lockdown still. It's Nepal has called it. They've shifted from lockdown to shutdown, so nothing's really open. We're confined. We can't leave the city limits. So unfortunately, there's not really mountains right now. There are some mountains in my mind. It's a bit of a challenging time because I'm so used to being out in the Himal, in the big mountains. So right now, my mornings, I get out early before there's cars. Cars are allowed on the road on an alternate day basis. It's a little bit messy. So I go for a run. It's not on trails like I'm used to. I'm dodging some cars, some motorbikes, some cows. Anyway, it is what it is. I'm trying to be creative in body and mind. So doing some running with some fitness just here in my room. And then I'm trying to do some writing, some little writing projects I've been trying to work on, developing my website to make sure it's completely accessible to all visual impairments. So that's I managed to fill my days and look forward to better ones ahead.
Well, fantastic. On our next visit, we'll talk a little bit more about your living arrangements there, because it seems like it's going to be challenging yet so inspirational. And Michelle Baird's Cara Wheatley Meldrum. I assume that's
my sister, Kara.
Hello, Kara. Love you already. Don't even know you. What a great show. Thank you. It was inspirational from Michael Baird's and Mel Mackie Mac. She's laughing at us. I guess it's Pepsi comment. All right. So thank you. Jill, you're an absolute true inspiration. And I really look forward to finding out more about your daily life, which we'll talk about, and some of the aspirations that you have going forward, and allowing all of us to be a part of your journey and making sure people that have suffered from a traumatic brain injury or any of vision loss, that they can follow your leadership and allow them, because I know you see more than the 30% that is given to you at this particular moment. And that's what inspires us so much. So thank you.
Thank you for hosting me. Thank you for having me, Carrie. I look forward to next time.
Thank you, Rob, for bringing her on. She was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.
The same thing, whatever that meant. I know. Oh my God. Listen, that was truly inspirational. I think we've used the word inspirational, but also very educational. Jill, as you have seen, is not only very articulate, very well thought in what her purpose is after such a devastating accident. And I did say it, and I've learned this through my life at 61. The trials and tribulations that you are given, we all have them. Nobody walks this earth without being challenged, and being challenged is what you do with it. The trials that you are given, it's what you do with it. Nobody else can do it for you. As I mentioned earlier, you could choose to be in a fetal position, or you could rise above, and as what Jill did this morning, run 14 kilometers. That's an inspiration. And I know we go through this pandemic, and I know the Gouche has probably put on 15 pounds since the pandemic, but it's an inspiration to get up off the couch and do more. And I think we all should look at that. And I just want to close with this again. Her mission is to release the shackles of stigma that traumatic brain injury, vision loss, eating disorders, and post-traumatic stress disorders hold. Is that not so true? In a time when we live through incredible challenges, can we not just throw those shackles down? We're not white, we're not black, we're not Asian, we're human. We bleed red. We cry when we cry, tears come out of our eyes. You're not weak to cry, you're not weak to ask for help. Strength is when you can ask for help, because it truly means that you are human. All right. Obviously, this is a sports show, and I'll leave you with the analogy of a sports. You're in overtime. It's game 7. And you have the puck, and you want to score. But unfortunately, you trip, and another player takes it down and scores, and you lose the game. And you lose the trophy. Have you really lost? Take that moment and learn. Because you know what? That day will come again when you'll need it. It may not be in hockey, but it may be in life. Losing is part of learning. So you never lose. All right, you've been watching Gouche Live featuring Paul Rosen. Paul will be with us later this afternoon. Robert Frid, thank you so much for introducing us to Jill. She will be a part of our journey as we go forward, helping people on Mental Health Mondays. We've had so many great people, and we're so blessed that she joined us, and we will have her back next week. Hey, guys, you know what? It's time to watch some hockey, and then we'll be back with you at 4 o'clock, where we've got Chuck and Paul coming, and we're going to be talking a little bit more mental health, and we've got our special guest doing part 2. Guys, thank you.
Let's play some hockey.